Marvel and DC Comics are back in the news and really not for anything good. When are they really in the news for anything good? Mark Miller has been absolutely savaging what's going on in the comic book industry and really pointing fingers at what Marvel and DC have done wrong. We've seen varying opinions on maybe how to solve the problems that are facing Marvel and DC. And some people think that they should indeed be saved and those problems should be solved. We have others that maybe don't think so. Maybe burn it all down and move on. We spoke with Graham Nolan earlier this week about that. He thinks that they should indeed be saved because of the history that the characters have and everything going back with them. But we have another person who's going to give us probably a different perspective. Chuck Dixon, welcome to the show, sir. The creator of Alpha Core #1, also the creator of Bane. You are probably one of the most prolific comic book writers out there. I think I saw a list going around that you're like #3 behind like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby.
Yeah, but that list only includes like Marvel, DC, and currently existing publishers. I'm #1 if you add in, everybody. I beat Paul S. Newman at Dell.
There you go. But so basically, I really wanted to talk to you about the state of Marvel and DC. As I said, spoke with Graham. I guess earlier this week. I guess it was last week. 7 days ago. I guess. And he laid out a number of reasons why he thinks that the comic industry should be saved, and he shared how he should save it. Mainly, his main reason was he wants to save it because of the characters and the legacy of those characters. Obviously, Batman, Iron Man, Captain America, The Thing, Fantastic Four, etc. They do have really strong legacies and everything like that. And I definitely understood where he was coming from. But what is your thoughts? Do you think that Marvel and DC should be saved, especially their current output that they're putting out, where they're having characters like Nightcrawler, who used to have a legacy of being a Catholic. Now he's going around like murdering people in cold blood. He's now been born from 2 lesbian women. And just all these kinds of ridiculous things that they're doing with the legacies of these characters that they're clearly are tarnishing them.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know where Graham's coming from because we've known each other forever. And I know he loves these characters. I love them as well, but they're, Batman, Robin, Spider-Man, all the rest, they're kind of being held hostage by DC and Marvel. They own them, and there's really nothing you can do about it. And I don't think anything is going to change there until those characters are taken away from them. They're not going to change course. Graham saying, get rid of everybody and hire new people. They're just going to hire from the same gene pool. Both he and Mark Miller, I understand where they're coming from with their advice for the comic industry, but even if everything they said was enacted, it's too late. They've lost a generation or two of readers who simply don't care about these comics anymore. And you can't interest people in something they never cared about. You can't rekindle interest in something to an audience that never cared in the first place. So I think the best thing that could happen is if these parent companies woke up to what debacle DC and Marvel are and just shut them down and began licensing the characters out to other creators, like Graham, like myself, like Mark Miller, and let us go to work on them and make some money and earn some readership.
Yeah, I think that would be a really good idea. We're already kind of seeing some of that happening, especially with like properties that are in the public domain. I know that you've done some things with I think it was like Jungle Queen or something like that.
I've done a lot with Airboy.
Yeah, Airboy. We're seeing Sean Gordon Murphy do some things with Zorro, even though it seems to be kind of what Marvel and DC are doing with all of their characters. What's the South Park thing? Put a woman in it, make it gay and lame.
Yes.
It looks like it's exactly what he's doing over there. Although his artwork makes it look good, at least. So even if they're doing kind of this licensing aspect, the people that they're licensing it to, do you think that would still run into the same issue where maybe they're licensing out to people that are currently running DC and Marvel now? Would you run into the same problem there, where they're still going to the same people?
Yeah, you might very well run into the same problem there, where it's like, we're open for business. We're going to license out, Superman, but not to you.
Right.
So they're going to pick and choose who they want to like. Yeah, you would still have some holdover there. So, like I said, it's too late. The inmates have taken over the asylum, and it's too late. Unless there's an enormous sea change in the culture of this country as a whole, and I don't see that coming. Um, I don't see any major changes coming. I mean, it's sad to say, and but I don't like it when people go, "Oh, comics are dying. If Marvel and DC die, comics are dead." No, comics is a medium. It's not an industry. It's painting is not an industry. Uh, Sculpting is not an industry. Comics are a medium, and comics are healthier than ever if you include book trade and you include manga. And I know it brings tears to the eyes of longtime comic book fans when I say, Dan Pilkey is keeping the medium alive with his graphic novels for children, which way outsell any of the output at DC and Marvel. So um, the future is bright for comics. It's just not very bright for these iconic characters we love so much.
Yeah, that's the one thing I think when you hear the criticisms that they're saying comics are dying, I think people are specifically referring to Marvel and DC. I don't think they're really referring to maybe things like Shonen Jump or what Viz is publishing with their licensed manga titles, or what you're saying with like Dan Pilkey and what Dogman I think is the series that
Yeah.
he does. But yeah, so what is your like? Obviously, with Marvel and DC, kind of they burnt the bridge. There's no way kind of saving them. Obviously, where do you see the future? Is it kind of which I also, as I kind of found interesting, is Graham's like, well, it's better for me that Marvel and DC do end up like eschewing their readers and going downhill because I've got my monsterverse that I'm
Right.
creating, and it helps me. It's like, if you want to tell those readers to basically piss off, I'll be like, here, come to me. I've got great books like the Chinu and things like that. So is that the answer? Is creating your own stuff and just not really worrying about what they're doing?
Well, it's an answer. I mean, obviously, Graham and Brian Polito and Eric July and Richard Meyer and Ethan Van Sciver and many others, Andy Smith, um, have responded to the fact that first of all, they want to keep doing comics because they love them, and secondly, that there is an underserved comic book audience who are starved for the kind of escapist entertainment they used to enjoy and can no longer get from the big two. So yeah, it's great for crowdfunding, but I don't see the crowdfunding going on forever and ever and ever. Um, there's got to be a next step, and I think some of these guys are heading toward that. Like a regular publishing venture, not just crowdfunding. So I
Yeah.
mean, hopefully this will evolve into something more solid, more united.
So you think kind of what Eric July is doing with his RIPRSE is kind of the direction you see as like a hybrid model where it is kind of somewhat crowdfunding. Obviously, it's more like pre-sales, but you're still going through kind of like that crowdfunding like similar website where you're picking what you want, putting it in your shopping cart, but you're getting it out maybe month, 2 months after you make that pre-sale, rather than maybe what Graham does where it's on Indiegogo and you might be waiting, I don't know, 6 months for like Ghost of Matacumbi Key or something like that.
Yeah, because I mean, Eric's got it so that the book's in your hands relatively quickly. Because not everybody in crowdfunding obviously is as trustworthy as Graham Nolan. If Graham Nolan says you're going to have the book in your hands in December, you're going to have the book in your hands in December because he's going to work like a dog to get it done. But we've
Yeah,
seen many times.
he's fulfilled
uh,
every campaign I've backed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's a man of his word. But we got a lot of crowdfunding campaigns. People are still waiting for books, years later. So, um, you know, I think Eric is moving more toward, like you say, pre-sales because he can fund future books based on the success of the previous ones. And I mean, I'm currently working on 3 different projects for him, and that are all in various stages of completion. And I think, yeah, that's the future. But I think moving beyond crowdfunding, and really, is he crowdfunding? No, because it's his own thing. He's not going through Indiegogo and Kickstarter. He's going through his own thing. So, as you say accurately, it's pre-sales. I think it's a model, and I know Eric wants to make the RIPRSE a big tent where a lot of creators can come in and share this basically retail powerhouse that he's built up.
What else do you see as kind of maybe another answer to the problem here? Because I know Mark Miller has been talking with a lot of these comic book retailers, and they're talking about one of their issues is how they distribute things. They feel like obviously the quality of the product is terrible. I think we're both in agreement on that. But they've kind of basically switched what they sell. Like sure, they might have been retail shops just specifically selling comics, but now they're selling all kinds of ancillary things within that kind of sphere. There, a lot of them talk about how much they make off of Pop Funko sales, and that's really what's keeping them afloat, rather than new comic sales or even old comic sales.
I mean, I know I'm friends with a very successful retailer with a chain of stores, and he said if it wasn't for Funko, he would have closed all the stores years ago. That he did very little of his sales are from comics; they're from tchotchkes and games, things like that. It's sad. It's really sad because that means the direct market for comics is dead. It has been dead. These are just gift shops now.
Right. Obviously, though, that's mainly for Marvel and DC, because we do still see extraordinarily fantastic sales for manga and the Shonen Jump stuff. You look at the ICV2 numbers, month over month. You look at the top 20 adult graphic novels. It's always dominated by the Japanese manga. So there clearly is still a demand for the
Oh yeah.
medium, right? Which was what we talked about earlier. But how do you kind of get that demand for some of these maybe smaller crowdfunded properties that just really aren't they might just not have the eyeballs that they necessarily need? Is maybe doing something like what Shonen Jump is doing successful, where they have kind of like a digital really successful digital online store and marketplace where you can kind of read the single issues right away, and then they sell like the collected volumes, and that's maybe the future rather than trying to still sell single issues.
I mean, digital is a way to go, but like everything else you try to promote on the internet, it's hard to get noticed. I mean, we have I think 15 million views at ArcTunes, but it's taken us years to get there. Um, I mean, digital is certainly a way to go global for these crowdfunders because shipping is a problem. You can buy the comic domestically and the shipping is reasonable. You go to buy it overseas, so there's this whole audience across the globe that these domestically produced comics aren't reaching because of the cost of mailing. Digital would be a way around that. But the thing is that the explosion of manga, while so many people look upon it in horror, um, it's keeping the medium alive. That's the entry level for comics now. It's up to us as domestic, producers here in the United States to try to exploit that audience, try to get them over to see some of our stuff. And you're already reading comics. How about giving these a try?
So what do you see as ways to do that?
Um, I mean, my ready answer, and it seems like cheap and exploitative, but that's comics. Is crossovers, and there's no reason why DC and Marvel are the only companies that can do crossovers. I think some of these independents, some of these crowdfunders could get the licensing to do crossover comics. I mean, your boy Zach. I mean, he's licensed stuff through Sylvester Stallone with my help. Um, you know, so
Rambo and the
come
Expendables.
up with an event. I mean, DC and Marvel are trying. Look, we brought back these great old professionals you used to love to do this series, and it's like, okay, so who cares? You got a generation of readers that don't care. But if you were to have two really popular characters who've never met before meet, you could actually get readers to go, well, I want to take a look at that. I mean, you've done it yourself. Anybody listening to me who's a comics fan and said, oh, Captain Potato Salad meets, the green cauliflower. Yeah, I'm going to read that. I'm really
Yeah.
curious to see what happens. And I really think that's, yeah, it seems cheap and easy, but that's how comics are promoted.
Yeah, if you again going back to the ICV2 data, you look at kind of like the most sold Marvel and DC properties. It is their crossovers where they're in like manga. It's like the Deadpool crossover or like the Joker manga, things like that. Those are the popular books when you're looking at those kind of Western characters, is they're being popularized by when they're being created by the Japanese creators and things like that. So I think that's a fantastic idea. Who wouldn't want to see maybe Cyberfrog make a cameo in in
Yeah,
Chainsaw Man or something like that, right?
yeah,
Gotta go kill the
and it's time tested because this is how DC and Marvel pulled themselves out of their nosedive in the '70s with Superman meets Spider-Man. That revitalized their sales.
Indeed, I like so obviously a lot we have the modern history here with what they're doing with the manga, and then obviously looking back in the '70s as well. So, like you said, time tested strategies that they seem to have just completely. I guess they haven't really completely abandoned because they are doing them now, but
Right.
definitely something that it can probably be exploited even further. That they're maybe not doing as much as what they could be doing.
Well, the thing is, they need to lean into it as an event, and also you can't just crap it out. I mean, when they did Superman, Spider Man, they were both companies were determined to make this the best comic they'd ever published, and it's arguable up to that point it probably was. I mean, it was certainly well crafted. I mean, well written, beautifully drawn. I mean, they really put a lot of effort into it, and I think that's the other key is you've got to bring them in, and then when they get there, it's got to be something quality.
So you obviously said you were working on a number of projects with the RIPRSE. Are any of those crossovers with any other
Well,
properties?
they sort of cross over within the Rippaverse. There's a
Right.
lot of dense continuity. Yeah, yeah. There's it all. We're writing standalone, basically graphic novels, but they all tie in to each other, not to a larger story, not to a crisis. You don't have to read everyone to understand everyone, but they definitely acknowledge. Like when I was a kid and Spider-Man Thor flies by, it's like, ooh, I thought that was so cool. So it's kind of those things where there's a nod to what's going on across the universe.
Do you think that's something too? Is that we're talking about the retail shops, and they're primarily, I feel like, aiming at people like in their like maybe late 20s to I don't know, late 50s, early 60s, etc. Do you think that is a problem too? That they're not maybe we're not like comics aren't in the hands of people that are in like their in middle school,
Yeah,
elementary
well,
school,
that's the biggest problem. Like I said, we've skipped a generation. They didn't create any comics that kids wanted to see. They'd forgotten that other time-tested lesson that your comic audience is supposed to turn over every few years. As the kids discover cars and the other sex, they stop buying comics, and then a new generation, their little brother, their little sister, shows up and starts reading them. And but what they try to do is just hold on to the same audience since the early '80s, and it's that's a stupid idea.
how do you propose getting it in front of a younger audience? Do you think that the stories they need to change? Because I feel like even when you're looking at a lot of the crowdfunded stuff, obviously Dogman is doing that, right? He's getting in front of
Right.
that younger audience, doing I mean, really successful at doing that. I think a lot of the Shonen Jump stuff is doing that as well. You look at that, I think a lot of the people when you go to like Comic Cons, a lot of the younger people cosplaying as those characters. They wearing the shirts and all. They got all the swag and everything. But I don't really see obviously, I don't even see that with a lot of the crowdfunded stuff. I don't see that a lot of that obviously at DC or Marvel either. They have some stuff, but it's usually like really that's like the wokest of the woke stuff that they're pushing out there. Like I'm not Starfire and all of that
Yeah.
stuff. But do you think that is something that no one is really doing in kind of the crowdfund space? Is maybe uh, trying to get comics in front of a younger audience
Well,
with the
crowdfunding is a
stories,
terrible way to get comics in front of kids because they're a little more expensive. I mean,
right?
you're asking for an investment here, and no kid's going to do that, and no kid's going to see a crowdfunder on impulse. He's not going to see it at the
He's not
checkout
surfing
aisle at the
Indiegogo
supermarket.
or Kickstarter, right? He's like,
Yeah,
those aren't the
yeah,
websites he's perusing.
you got to find a way to get it in front of kids, and there's book fairs. There's get back into the supermarkets, get back where kids actually see them. Um, And but the problem is, DC and Marvel, their general thing is, oh, we got to get younger readers, and so they put together this, pandering crap, you know, uh, because they think, oh, this is what kids like. They had no idea what kids like. I mean, when you first read comics, when I first read comics, we were kids, and we were just reading regular comics. So just take your comics and make them more engaging, make them more interesting, make them better crafted. Um, I think, I mean, DC, I see where they're going to be doing these like smaller editions, reprint editions. I don't know where they're going to rack these things. What I've seen, I'm not impressed with. They're it's too subtle a push. I would go the Shonen Jump route. I would have a big fat black and white telephone book reprint of some of their best stuff, and on the front, just "Hey Kids Comics." Maybe cellophane wrap it with stickers, something to get kids to look at it. Instead of either totally pandering with like stories about Crypto, the super dog, or totally going, like this sophisticated little, collection, this little digest of comics for you to read. Just go all out. Hey kids, win a free bike.
That's one of the things that I also really don't like about kind of the modern comics that you see here, at least with the Western stuff, is there's no like anthologies or collected anymore because it was a magazine. You're competing with magazines, right? You look at
Right.
those early titles of like the Flash, you're getting Hawkman. There's a bunch of like war comics in there. There's usually a Western or so. So you got all kinds of different genres and everything in there as well. And now like it's just a little floppy. You get like 20, 23, if that, pages of story, and it's just one thing, and it's not even a complete story. Whereas like you look at those old books from the Flash, and you're getting like 6, 7 stories front to back. Like they all have a beginning, middle, and end,
Right.
and sure the stories can continue in the next one, but that's something that I feel like is completely missing now as well. From what they did maybe back in like the 30s and 40s.
Yeah, I mean, part of the difficulty is those kind of stories are hard to write and make engaging. Telling a year long span that goes across all the multiverses, that's easy. It's just a series of cliffhangers and resolutions and recaps. But to tell snappy little 8-page stories, it takes a lot of thought, and there's not a lot of people in the writing pool now that would even go near that.
Yeah, and that was something that I really liked that you teamed up with Graham to do with what is it, Two Fisted Manly Tales, I think
Yeah,
is the title, which I thought was like one of the best things that I've seen from comics in a very long time, because it brought back it brought back what you got in the Flash. You had obviously different stories and things like that. So I really enjoyed that. So I'll just leave it to you. Final thoughts here. What do you make of the state of the industry? And I guess just final thoughts on, do you think Marvel and DC should really be saved, or just move on and you're going to do your own thing, and they're
yeah,
they're, they're going to come along for the ride?
yeah. I mean, we keep talking about the industry. We're really talking about the direct market, and direct market's done. The only retailers I know who are successfully selling comics don't get in new comics; they just do back issues. So and they're doing fine. So there's a hunger and a thirst for comics. DC and Marvel are not ever going to fill that thirst. It's never going to change there. They are managing the decline, and like I said, without Funkos, the direct market's already dead. So we got to move on. And but the health of the medium, it couldn't be healthier. There's more kids reading manga and reading book trade comics than ever before, and that's a good thing. Now let's get them over. Let's do what Stan Lee used to call plateau marketing. As they get older, let's move them into different kinds of comics, and hopefully over to domestically produced American comics.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Chuck Dixon. Always love your insight on what's happening in the comic book world. You have fantastic analysis, and we love to have you here, and we'll definitely have you back again soon.
It's the only thing I know anything about.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. All right. Thanks, Chuck. Have a great one.
Okay, thank you.